I'm going to introduce someone at our company who I like to think of as a preacher. His title on our website still says Chief Technology Officer, but he's changing his title to Technology Evangelist, and that's really what he is. I want to please bring up Greg DIXON. Come on up, Greg.
Thank you, Mike.
After the break, we've got a big announcement to make, but before the break, we wanted you guys to hear from Greg on why it's important.
Thank you, Mike. I want to talk to you. My job for just 10 minutes, listen, I have 10 minutes to get you to think big thoughts, bigger than the through line, bigger than love. How am I going to do this? And so we're going to think big thoughts. Can you do that for 10 minutes? Just 10 minutes. And we're going to talk about, I want to use the internet to get us to think some big thoughts now. And so I want to take us back here, a little bit of a timeline just to get us thinking big now. And we're going to talk about the internet and how it's come forward. So I'm going to go back internet eons, way back in time, back to 1993. I know some of you weren't born in 1993. But in 1993, I would boot up my 386 Intel, with my 40 megabyte hard drive. It took 7 minutes. I would physically type in this long address and take me out through my 2400 baud modem, and it would take me to a server, and that server had information. And listen, there were dozens of servers out there that I could choose from. And so that's the way the internet began, with this. It became an internet of information, right? But wow, so we move forward, right? Everything goes forward, and we go forward to a time of tons more bandwidth and a faster processor and more disk space and more memory, more of everything. And now I can go to a website that takes me to a theater with all sorts of streaming media and music and you name it. I can get all of this great content now. And it becomes an internet of media. Forward again. Takes me to people. It's an internet of people. I want to connect with my peeps, right? My own folks, my community. And so it takes me out now to an internet of people through a website that I can connect, and it's an internet of people now. Certainly I want to buy something. So, of course, the next step is an internet of commerce. It takes me not to a website, but to a special website, a secure website that'll take my credit card and won't steal it, maybe. And it probably won't lose my information. And so I can buy a pair of shoes and they show up at my house the next day. How cool is that, right? How cool is that? And so you're thinking big with me now, right? And so where are we? That's sort of where we are today, right? We've come a long way in just, a couple of eons. And so where are we going? Where are we going next? An internet of things. So, instead of connecting a person to a thing, the internet today is connecting things to things. You think, well, Greg, when will we be there? Listen, today, 49% of all internet traffic will be generated by humans. We're already in the minority here, already today. And so we look at this internet of things, of things talking to things. And we do that with a number of new technologies. That thing right there, that long number you see is an IPv6. A new IP address, and we can identify not just every human on Earth, but everything on Earth has its own unique identity in this thing. And so you have to get your hands around this thing. And so instead of an internet of things, we have to call this the internet of everything. I mean, it's everything, right? So let's take some examples, just to get our brain working here. Let's talk for a minute about some of these things. So that is a commercial freezer. It's a freezer. It's like a freezer you see in a lot of, you don't see them, they're way in the back. 5 or 6 of them back there in a nice big chain restaurant. This freezer is supposed to be at 0 degrees. It's now at 20 degrees. And it's getting warmer 2 degrees an hour. And it has sensed the fact that it is now not where it should be and that its compressor is no longer spinning. And so this freezer is a smart freezer. This freezer uses a little device that's built into the freezer that communicates via a little wireless network inside the restaurant to a controller. So this freezer is now talking to another machine inside the building that is now connected out to the internet of every darn thing, right? And so that machine talks to another machine, which is a server, an application. It's out in the cloud somewhere. And that cloud application recognizes it. It's identified. In comes an error code along with it. And now this server knows that I've got a freezer. It's in trouble. It's 4 hours from ruining the food that's in it. And we know exactly what's wrong with it. And so that machine talks to a third machine, which is the smartphone of the technician, wakes him up out of bed and says, hey, you need to be at this restaurant. You need to go now. You need to take this part with you. Here's what's wrong. Here's what you're going to find when you get there. Now, I spent a few minutes on that one so you can see that there's a lot of interaction going on here, a lot of thing-to-thing communication going on, right? That cow, I like this cow, but that cow hasn't been milked in 3 days. She's in trouble. I mean, her world is in utter chaos. You got that? I didn't think you would get that. And so how do I know she hasn't been milked in 3 days? I'm the dairy farmer. She wears a tag in her ear. And that tag identifies her. Every time she walks through the door of the milk barn, it says, she is here, this particular cow is here, and it also measures her gait, the way she walks. And a cow who's sick walks funny. Didn't know this. And so as a result, I get a ton of information. I'm the dairy farmer, and this machine talking to another machine, the machine's not the cow, but the device, and it communicates a lot about me, and I have a much more efficient, much more profitable dairy farm. Boxes. Boxes on conveyors. These are just boxes, right? Nope, these are smart boxes. They have an RFID tag attached to every single one of them. And this box identified the moment that it left the beginning of the supply chain, exactly where it is along the path of the supply chain, which truck it's in, and how far along it's come, and how much more time it has to go before it gets to the end of the supply chain. Lots of information. This box can tell you it's been dropped and how many times and on which side it was dropped on when it gets there. And this box is like 1 billion other boxes. Think of how many boxes are on their way somewhere right now. These are smart boxes, things talking to things. Fleet of vehicles, right? Every vehicle manufactured in the United States has what's called an OBD port, onboard data. You plug a little device in there, and this vehicle now is a smart vehicle. It can talk back to its owners, and it can communicate 31 data points, and it can tell all sorts of things. For instance, it can tell that the driver left the engine running for 2 hours while he was on his sales call inside so that it would be cool when he got back outside on a hot day. Not good. Gas mileage goes to pot, right? It tells a bunch about this thing. It tells that driver exceeded the speed limit and how many times he exceeded the speed limit today. It also tells the owner of the vehicle when the next oil change is necessary. And so it communicates back to a host. The host sends a message down to the sales rep's smartphone and puts on their schedule an appointment to go to this particular oil change facility the day after tomorrow at 2 o'clock because you have an appointment there and don't be late. And you have exactly 20 minutes while you're there. We have a smart fleet of vehicles, machines, talking to machines. That's an ice maker. It's probably in the same restaurant where you find this freezer, only where the freezer was talking out, the ice maker is receiving information into the restaurant. And what happens there is the controller for the ice machine is some server, some application somewhere, and it's watching the weather report. And so on hot days, it tells all of the 500 ice makers in its network to make all the ice you can. On hot days, people like a lot of ice in their drinks. But it also knows that there is a cool front coming in. It's going to be cold for 4 or 5 days, and we want you to cut your ice production by 50%, all 500 ice machines. You think, ice? I mean, come on, how expensive is ice? Ice is not expensive. Power is. And the power consumption that is now cut from those 500 ice machines can be sold back to the smart grid, who can redeploy that power to other places, to the point that the power company just might subsidize the technology that makes the ice machine smart. Call center. Okay, getting close to home here. Think about call centers and think about all the many, many people who are in call centers across the United States and across India, okay? Just think about all those people and all the call centers, and think about a time not too many years ago when call center managers had to decide which calls to record and how long the call could be recorded and the length of that call and how do we find out, where do we recall that call? No longer, right? No more. And it's because the cost of the storage of those things has gotten ridiculously cheap. And so today we record every single word in every single conversation. And with some technology that Google's been working on, you can actually search on a particular word that was spoken in a conversation and find it. You can't see that. That's a tote filled with tomatoes. Now, the tomatoes are dumb. The tote is smart. The tote has an RFID tag in it, and it identifies itself from farm to market and all along the way. But it will tell the recipient, have those tomatoes been over a certain temperature, under a certain temperature? One last one. That's a container, a 40-foot container, sitting on the desert floor in Afghanistan, and it's filled with ammunition. And the one right beside it is filled with meals ready to eat, MREs. And so, wouldn't it be nice if every time something is taken out of the container realizes that fact? The item is marked, the container has a sensor, it knows when the device goes out. The container now, as it's emptied, is communicating that information in real time, uplinked to a satellite, back to the logistics managers in Washington, D.C., who then in real time replenish the inventory of ammunition and food. So listen, this is just to get us thinking about these kinds of things. You know, I want to explore this notion of these big ideas, and this is the term. Listen, just Google M2M. You'll be overwhelmed with things. You'll think, golly, where did this come from? This has been coming a long time. Long time. And if you really think about some of those kinds of applications, that seems all forward thinking. No, this is right now. That's going on as we speak. And so machine-to-machine communications brings about big data. Oh boy, Google that one. Right? This is the big topic of the day. Everybody, I'm reading a book right now on big data, right? Big data. And so with all of those machines talking to each other, you have to think, wow, that's a lot of data. We're creating a lot of data. And what makes big data? It's high volume, it's high velocity, it's a high variety of data. Lots and lots and lots of big data. Now, where does that mean to me? Why is he talking about this? Where does big data have to live? That's the question I want us to think about for just a few minutes, because it lives in some storage. It lives in storage. And so, I want you to think about where all of this applies to you and your business model. And think about where storage applies to you and your technologies. I want you to think about voicemail. I want you to think about call recording. I want you to think about tons and tons of CRM data that your customers are creating, okay? I want you to think about those things. And listen, we were gonna have a 10-minute break, but just in closing, I wanna have a time of Q&A. Can we have some Q&A, please? Anybody? No, I'm kidding. We're going to a break. No Q&A. I've been instructed, no Q&A. And so, listen, I want you to think about these things. I want you to think about where storage, and after the break, after a 10-minute break, you're going to come back and you're going to have a very exciting announcement. I can't wait. Thanks very much.